You call that parenting? Letting your brats scribble all over the sidewalk like it's a damn graffiti wall? I turned, heart hammering, and saw her, Karen. Arms crossed, jaw clenched, eyes burning with that same superiority she wore like a badge. My daughter Maya froze mid-doodle, the yellow chalk still pressed to the concrete like she didn't know whether to keep coloring or cry. My son, Liam, stepped in front of her protectively, small but brave. They're children, I snapped, striding over and shielding them both. They're drawing butterflies, not gang signs. Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from. Thanks. Karen scoffed and dramatically pulled out her phone like she was about to livestream the next world-ending crime. This is public property. This is permanent damage. Vandalism. I've already called the HOA and filed a complaint. She turned the screen toward me like a badge of honor. A blurry photo of Maya's chalk rainbow was already posted on some neighborhood app, captioned with, "This is why our community standards are declining." Something inside me snapped. "Oh, you want to talk about standards?" I said, stepping closer. "How about the standard where we treat children with kindness? How about not yelling at a 6-year-old because you don't like colors on the ground that rain washes away?" By now, neighbors were peeking out windows, one even cracking open their front door. A few phones rose. Karen loved an audience. She puffed herself up like a peacock, pointing at my kids like they were criminals. "People like you let this place turn into a trashy dump. First it's chalk, then it's garbage, then it's broken fences and loud music at night. It's sidewalk chalk, Karen," I shouted, my voice shaking but firm. Not a broken bottle or a cigarette butt. My kids were playing in front of our house. "You don't own the sidewalk." She jabbed her finger toward the ground like she was directing traffic. "That is city-owned property. You're not allowed to deface it." Liam looked up at me, his little hand finding mine, eyes wide with confusion. "Are we bad?" he whispered. And right there, my stomach twisted. "No, baby," I said, kneeling down. "You did nothing wrong. You were being creative. You were making something beautiful." Karen groaned loudly, like my defense of my own children was personally offensive to her ears. Oh, spare me the sob story. Some of us care about keeping this neighborhood looking decent. And if that means getting the authorities involved, so be it. I stood up slowly. "You want to file a complaint? Go ahead. You'll be the one explaining to the city how a child's drawing of a smiling sun offended you so deeply you needed to waste public resources." She laughed, a bitter, mocking sound. "You really think anyone's gonna side with you over me? You're just a renter." Ah. There it was. Not just about chalk. Never was. "I own this house," I said, voice low now, shaking with a different kind of heat. "And I've lived here longer than you. But even if I didn't, my kids still have the right to play. To exist." Karen rolled her eyes and turned to go, but not before sneering, "We'll see what the HOA thinks. Don't be surprised when your lease gets reviewed, again." As she stomped off in her designer sandals like she just dropped the mic, I knelt beside Maya, who had tears pooling in her eyes. "I just wanted to draw a rainbow for Daddy," she whispered. "So he sees it when he gets home." I hugged her so tight she squeaked. "He's going to love it," I said. But inside, I was fuming. This wasn't over. Karen thought she won something by scaring my kids and throwing her weight around, but she had no idea who she was messing with. Not because I had money or power, but because I had something stronger, a reason to stand up and never back down again. She picked the wrong mom. And I was about to show her just how far I'd go to protect what mattered. 3 days later, I opened the mailbox and nearly laughed out loud. Nearly, because the envelope wasn't a joke. It was real. A formal notice from the HOA. Violation of community appearance standards, defacement of public property. Photographic evidence included. It was Maya's rainbow. That crooked, beautiful little rainbow she'd drawn for her dad. Right there, circled in red like it was evidence in a criminal trial. I walked inside, closed the door quietly behind me, and sat down at the kitchen table, letter trembling in my hands. Liam and Maya were at the breakfast bar, still in their pajamas, giggling over cereal. They had no idea what was coming. Because this wasn't just some petty letter. This was Karen's war declaration. The complaint said I had 7 days to appear before the HOA board and respond to the incident. Failing to do so could result in daily fines, permanent documentation, possible legal escalation. I stared at the paper. I wasn't scared of fines. I was scared of what this meant for my kids, for their joy, their freedom, their innocence. And worse, I knew Karen wasn't just filing this to maintain community standards. This was personal. See, Karen had a history. She once reported the elderly couple next door for having a bird feeder she claimed was attracting rodents. She'd called animal control on another neighbor's therapy dog because it barked once during a thunderstorm. She left typed notes on cars she felt were parked too close to the curb. She didn't want a neighborhood. She wanted a kingdom. And she ruled with complaints. So I stood up, letter in hand, and decided something then and there. She could file her little papers. She could yell in the street. She could write all the reports she wanted. But this mom wasn't backing down. The meeting was in the local rec center. And from the minute I walked in, I felt it, eyes on me. Judging. Whispers. Karen sat in the front row, legs crossed, file folder on her lap like she was about to prosecute a major case. I stepped up to the podium when they called my name. I could see the chalk photos displayed on the board's projector. Maya's rainbow. Liam's little rocket ship. Their names written in purple curly letters. Good evening, I began. My voice was calm, too calm. My name is Rachel Moore. I'm a mother of 2. I live at 742, Amberwood Lane. And I'm here today because a neighbor, one who has a long track record of harassing others under the guise of protecting the community, filed an official complaint against my children for playing. A few people shifted in their seats. I pressed on. Yes. Chalk. Not paint. Not graffiti. Not anything damaging. Sidewalk chalk. The kind that washes off in the next rain or even with a garden hose. The kind that millions of kids around the world use every day, without being accused of criminal behavior. Karen raised her hand like she was in school. Point of order, Chair. This is a violation of decorum. But the HOA president, a woman named Barbara with a tight bun and a no-nonsense voice, waved her down. You'll have your turn, Mrs. Halvorson. I looked straight at Karen. This isn't about chalk. It never was. This is about control. And fear. And bullying. You've targeted the elderly, the disabled, pet owners, and now, children. My children. The room was quiet. Very quiet. I pulled out a binder of my own. Pages of photos, other kids in the neighborhood over the years, drawing with chalk on sidewalks. Even some of Karen's own guests, kids from her fancy brunches, doing the same. I'd found them online. Screenshots didn't lie. I laid them out one by one. Why wasn't this chalk a problem? Or this? Or this? I flipped page after page. Karen's expression cracked. This isn't about community standards, I said. It's about selective enforcement. About someone using authority to harass people she doesn't like. And I won't let it continue. For a moment, there was only the hum of the overhead lights. Then Barbara cleared her throat. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Board will deliberate in private and notify all parties in writing within 5 business days. Karen stood up, already flustered. I have a right. But Barbara didn't even look at her. She turned to me instead. You may go. Thank you for your composure. And just like that, I walked out. Not defeated. Not apologizing. I walked out with my head high, and a fire building inside me. Because even if I won the meeting, this wasn't the end. Karen didn't like losing. And I had the gut feeling she'd try to strike back. She hadn't even started with what she had planned. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't the same woman who let her scream at my kids on the sidewalk. I was done staying quiet. And this was going to be the last war she ever picked. It wasn't even 2 days later. I came home from work, still in scrubs, and there it was, bright orange and taped to the front door like a warning. Final notice, community infraction. $250 fine imposed. Pay within 10 days to avoid further action. My jaw locked. The complaint had been upheld. Barbara and the board, the same ones who let me speak, who nodded politely, sided with Karen. I couldn't believe it. Not until I opened the second envelope. Inside were photographs again, zoomed in, dramatic, almost staged. The chalk looked exaggerated under a strange filter. And at the bottom of the letter, due to refusal to clean markings upon request, the defacement has now been deemed intentional. Intentional. Like my 6-year-old had spray painted the sidewalk with gang signs. I stared at it, the blood draining from my face. And right then, Maya ran out from her room, holding her backpack, tears in her eyes. "Mommy," she sobbed. "Why did they show my rainbow on the board at school?" I froze. "What?" She sniffled, clutching my leg. "They had an assembly. Someone showed pictures, said we can't do bad things to the sidewalk." All the kids turned and looked at me. I knelt down. "Who showed it, baby?" She shook her head, but I already knew. Karen was friends with the school administrator. She'd sent in the photos, probably framed it like a lesson. She wanted to shame my child. Over chalk. That night, after I tucked Maya in and wiped away her tears, I went outside with a bucket of water. I looked down at the faint pink heart still clinging to the concrete. I thought about scrubbing it. About making it go away so Karen would feel like she'd won. But instead, I picked up the chalk box. And I added to it a giant sun, smiling. The words "Be kind" in bright blue. And beneath that, in bold yellow, "Love is not a crime. Let her report that." But that wasn't all I did. I got on my laptop. I pulled up the HOA guidelines. I read every word. And buried on page 17, under accessory structures, was a line that changed everything. Permanent decorative items installed in shared spaces must be disclosed and approved. I read it again. My heart started pounding. Because 2 houses down from Karen's, a little too close to the curb, sitting on the edge of HOA jurisdiction, was a statue. An ugly, 6-foot concrete sculpture of a peacock with gold-painted feathers. Karen bragged about it all the time, said it was imported from Tuscany. She used it as a landmark when giving guests directions. But she'd never gotten board approval. I knew she hadn't. And suddenly, I had a plan. It wasn't just about getting even. It was about showing my daughter, and every other family Karen tried to crush, that bullies don't get to win just because they have power. Sometimes, all it takes is someone willing to stand up. The next morning, I submitted my own complaint to the HOA. Detailed. With timestamps. Photos. Guideline citations. And then, I took it a step further. I created a community Facebook group, Sidewalk Souls, Chalk Isn't a Crime. I uploaded every chalk photo I had. Encouraged other parents to share their own. Invited neighbors, teachers, even local reporters. Within hours, it blew up. Dozens of posts. People sharing their kids' drawings, their childhood memories, their own stories of Karen's bullying. It turned out, she'd been at this for years. One mom said Karen reported her for letting her daughter sell lemonade without a vendor permit. An older man said she filed a noise complaint when he played harmonica on his porch. Karen had made enemies. but no one ever thought to fight back. Until now. By day 3, the post had over 12,000 shares. Local news reached out. And the best part? Someone anonymous, but I had a good guess who, sent me a screenshot. An old email from Karen, bragging to a friend about intentionally skipping board approvals for her peacock statue because they'd never notice. I printed that email, attached it to my formal complaint, and walked it right into the HOA office. Barbara was there. She didn't say a word. Just took the envelope from me with trembling fingers. Because suddenly, Karen wasn't the only one under fire. And this time, she'd messed with the wrong mom. It happened on a Saturday. The kind where birds are chirping, sprinklers are ticking, and everything just feels still. Until screeching tires shattered the calm. I looked up from my coffee, standing at the edge of our driveway, Maya drawing beside me again, this time with friends from the neighborhood. Half the sidewalk was already a mural of suns, unicorns, hearts, and little stick families. And then, you. The sound tore across the block like thunder. Karen. Hair frizzed, sunglasses crooked, phone in hand. Marching toward us in kitten heels like she was on a warpath. Behind her, a white van parked diagonally across her lawn. On the side, in big bold letters, HOA compliance and enforcement. 2 men were already at the statue, one with a clipboard, the other with measuring tape. I didn't say a word. Karen stomped to the edge of my lawn, red-faced and practically foaming. You filed a complaint about my art piece? You think you're clever? You think this is a game? I looked her dead in the eyes. No, Karen. You made it one. I'm just finally playing. She shrieked. That statue is from Italy. It's worth more than your entire car. Then you should have read the guidelines. Page 17. Decorative structures in public view without approval can be subject to removal, immediately. She gasped like she'd been slapped. And just then, one of the HOA reps held something up, a document with red highlights and the HOA seal. Ma'am, he called out to her. You were warned about this last year, too. We have record of the notice. You never responded. I watched her jaw drop. Her hand flew up, pointing wildly at me like a toddler caught lying. This is her fault. She's poisoning the whole neighborhood. Letting kids draw offensive trash on sidewalks. Rainbows? I stepped forward, voice low but steady. Your words humiliated my daughter in front of her entire class. You tried to frame chalk as vandalism. You tried to fine us. You tried to silence us. Karen barked out a laugh, manic and desperate. You think this little rebellion changes anything? I run this neighborhood. At that exact moment, a car pulled up. Then another. Then another. Parents. Neighbors. A few reporters I didn't even know were coming. One of them with a shoulder camera, stepping out with purpose. And then, like it was choreographed, half a dozen kids started chanting from the sidewalk. Chalk isn't a crime. Chalk isn't a crime. Karen spun around. Are you filming this? Turn that off. I did not give consent. The reporter stepped forward calmly. This is a public sidewalk, ma'am. And this community outreach story has already been cleared by the station. Karen's face turned 3 shades of red. She turned back to me. Her voice cracked. This was supposed to be my neighborhood. I built the rules. I kept order. Before you people showed up with your messes and your chalk and your Facebook mobs. No, I said quietly. What you built was fear. People were scared to speak up because you made it hard for them. But not anymore. She took a trembling step back. Her hands balled into fists. You'll regret this, she hissed. And that's when I smiled. I don't think I will. Because just then, the HOA man with the clipboard turned and nodded. Removal team's been authorized. Statue will be gone by end of day. Karen choked. You can't. That's property theft. I'll sue. Another car pulled up. This time, it was Barbara. She got out slowly. No clipboard. No expression. Just calm, tired eyes. Karen, she said softly. There's been a board vote. Karen spun. About what? Barbara glanced at me, then back at her. Your position has been reviewed. Effective immediately, you're being relieved of all HOA duties. Silence fell. Even the birds seemed to pause. Karen blinked. No, she breathed. You can't. I am the board. No, Barbara interrupted gently. You were. But this community spoke up. And we listened. Karen's mouth opened. Closed. She looked at me one last time, not with rage now, but something close to fear. And then, she turned and stormed off. By sunset, the statue was gone. The sidewalk was glowing with color. And Maya? She was smiling again. 6 months later, I stood on that very same sidewalk, but this time, the air was filled with laughter, music, and the soft, satisfying scratch of chalk against pavement. Kids danced between drawings. Parents walked with lemonade cups. And long tables stretched across the street with boxes full of free chalk, sponsored by local businesses. We called it the first annual Sidewalk Stories Festival. Maya had been planning her piece for weeks. She wore her favorite blue overalls, hair tied back with a rainbow scrunchie, crouched in full concentration beside a massive design of a tree, one half bare and gray, the other blooming with color. Beneath it, she'd written in big, looping letters. Let us grow. She didn't say a word when the judges came by. She just stood quietly beside her work, holding my hand. The judges nodded, whispered, and scribbled. One even teared up. And when they finally announced the winners, her name echoed across the neighborhood speakers like music. First place. Maya. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She just smiled, small, proud, steady. And that smile? It healed something in me I didn't even know was broken. After the ribbons were handed out and the sun began to dip behind the rooftops, I spotted a familiar face hovering near the edge of the crowd. Karen. She wasn't dressed in her usual bold red or floral prints. No sunglasses. No clipboard. Just a beige cardigan and a worn purse clutched tight against her side. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked smaller. Not physically, but emotionally. Like all that steam, all that bluster, had finally burned itself out. She didn't approach. Just lingered, watching the kids laugh and run. Part of me wanted to look away. But something in me said no. So I walked over. She noticed me coming, straightened a little, but didn't speak first. I did. You came. She nodded stiffly. I heard, the event got approved. It did. Full board support. Even got a donation from the mayor's office. Karen looked away, eyes scanning the rainbow pavement like she didn't know what to say. Then she whispered something. I almost didn't catch it. I never hated the kids, you know. I blinked. Then why? She sighed. Long and slow. I liked things a certain way. Quiet. Clean. Predictable. And when the world started changing, more people, more kids, more noise, I panicked. I thought if I controlled everything, I could keep things from slipping. A pause. Then she added, but maybe I became the thing that needed to change. I didn't speak. Not because I didn't have words. But because I didn't need them in that moment. Sometimes silence is enough to let someone feel the weight of their own reflection. Karen took one step forward, closer to the chalk art lining the curb. She glanced down at Maya's tree. It's beautiful, she murmured. She's talented. She gets that from her dad, I said softly. But the strength to share it? That's all hers. Karen nodded slowly. Then she looked back up at me. Would it be okay if I donated chalk for next year's event? I raised an eyebrow. You think the neighborhood will accept that? She didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, I don't expect them to. But I'd like to try. I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no either. We stood in silence for a few more seconds. Then she turned and walked away, slow, thoughtful steps that left no footprints, only echoes. That night, as I tucked Maya into bed, she turned to me with sleepy eyes. Mom? Yeah, baby? I think Karen's sad. I paused, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. Maybe. Sometimes people who try to control everything are really just scared of losing what they love. Maya blinked. Will she get better? I think, I whispered, she already started. And as I turned off the lights and stepped into the hallway, I realized something. Karen may have screamed. She may have threatened. She may have tried to erase color with fear. But at the end of the day, the chalk stayed. The joy stayed. The love stayed. Because truth, like chalk, may be stepped on, swept aside, or rained upon. But it always comes back brighter. Especially when the whole community picks up a piece and draws the next line together.